Welcome to another exciting edition of Happy Campers, kids. It's been a while, hasn't it? I started thinking about doing a new episode a while back, and I couldn't rack my mind around the idea of what to do an episode about. So I did one about the torture porn genre and how it was pretty similar to the slasher genre. How they were both inspired by one or two films and then became like a phenomenon. Where Friday the 13th started the slasher genre, which didn't really start because they had like Peeping Tom and Psycho and Homicidal, and then they had like Black Christmas and Halloween and all that stuff. So then, but what I want to talk about this time is one of my favorite things from my teenage years when I first got cable in the early 90s. One of my favorite channels to watch was the USA Network. And this is where I saw some of the best stuff ever. It really helped fuel my love of horror with films like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Child's Play, Halloween, Hellraiser, Pumpkinhead. Then it also played other stuff like Star Trek and Star Wars, and had shows like Quantum Leap and Duckman and all that. So it was a network I was really glued to for a while. And then we finally got the Sci-Fi Channel in '95, so I really got into the Sci-Fi Channel and just became obsessed with everything in that on that channel. But what I loved about the USA Network is back in the day, they were really connected with Friday the 13th. They would play them all the time. I think the one they played the most was probably Part 8. Because like one of my go-to things back in my teenage years was USA's Up All Night. That show really opened my eyes to different types of cinema, and I really loved the tongue-in-cheek style of Rhonda Shear, and really inspired me to like want to be a host, like a horror host, which I do for Midnight Chillers. So it was really fun just to sit there and just because it was like you had somebody to talk to, sort of. Someone would talk to you about the movie while you're watching the movie, and you get to like to find out little tidbits of information. You get some entertaining, and it was fun. And that was really what started it for me. Was I remember it was like 1993. It was me, my dad, my sister, and my cousin. We had a big bowl of popcorn. We sat down and we watched a Friday the 13th marathon on USA Up All Night, and it started with Part 7, which became my go-to Friday the 13th film for years. I love Part 7, and Kane Hodder is probably one of the best Jasons out there. He's the one who played him the most, and he's been most associated with the character. But the very first one I saw from beginning to end, I remember in '93, was Part 7. And then it's the weird thing they did, USA Network, I never understood, but they would always go backwards. Like they start with like they did it with the trauma movies too. I remember like they did like Class of Nukem High 2, and then they did Class of Nukem High 1 back, and I was like, why the hell would you do that? It's so weird, but they would do that back in the day on USA's Up All Night. And then the Halloween season, like '94, '95 Halloween season, that's when I was going crazy. I was watching like Puppet Master and Child's Play 2 and Fright Night and all these different shows. I mean, Halloween was my season because of these movies, and because I never had a chance to see anywhere else because I couldn't really rent them because my mom was really strict about stuff like that. So I would enjoy it. But getting back on track, what I loved about the USA Network was that there's always something worth watching on there. I mean, I'd sit there and I'd watch reruns of Wings or Quantum Leap or like those made for TV movies they would play. And then there was like USA Saturday Nightmares and like Commander USA's Groovy Movies. So there was always something worth watching. And then they had the Cartoon Express. So I'd always be glued to USA Network. That was like my go-to channel. And my favorite show, which I defended to everybody who would say anything negative about it, was Duckman. And I would love Duckman, and it's probably one of my favorite cartoon shows out there. And I wish they would do a revival of it. I wish they would bring it back. because it was like so ahead of its time. I mean, stuff they do today doesn't really compare to what they did back then. I mean, because it was like Claudio Chuco's company, and they just did The Simpsons, and they did Duckman as a follow up, and then they were gonna do like the Rugrats and all that. So there was like animation was so cool. Every channel had their own animated series after The Simpsons became big, because everybody wanted to do their own animated series. Uh, but so USA had Duckman, and it was best. I mean, Duckman. I mean, USA was just badass back in the day. The only thing I hated about USA Network was the U.S. Open. I mean, I hated like just sitting there having to watch tennis matches and try to find something else to worth watching or go outside and play. But it was just so annoying. The USA Network. But the saddest thing for me was as a kid, middle school, watching the weekend of Friday the 13th movies where they have like 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and 8 over and over again. The saddest thing was just like knowing Sunday afternoon, to seeing the end of Friday the 13th Part 8 when Jason was in the sewers and he was melted and he turned into a little boy and they played that power ballad music as the credits roll. You're like, shit, it's over. Because it was the end of an era. I mean, the Frank Mancuso Jr. era of Friday the 13th started with Part 3 and ended with Part 8. And he was the key to making those movies what they were. I mean, he admitted in interviews that he didn't really want to be associated with it anymore, but he's pretty much the heart and soul of Friday the 13th because he did the series, the TV show. He was in charge of picking who would play Jason. He would pick where they would go, and he was smart. He knew what the audience wanted, and he was Mr. Friday the 13th for years. And then I understand like it was kind of depressing because at the end of the Paramount era. With Friday the 13th Part 8, that era ends, and it's really sombering and depressing to see the credits roll, and then you realize, okay, it's over, and then you get Jason Goes to Hell, which is a new kind of era. I mean, from what I understand, with those films was with that film was the fact that Sean Cunningham got the rights for the Jason character with the hockey mask and everything, and wanted to do his own thing because they were disappointed with Part 8, and they just said they wanted this as far away from Part 8 as possible. So they did the shape shifting, body swapping craziness, which was fun. I mean, I'm not. I mean, I know a lot of hardcore Friday fans are split where they only like the Paramount era, or they only like 1 through 4, or they only, and they say they don't like the zombie Jason, they don't like the Freddy versus Jason and all that stuff, the Puritans or whatever. They're all good films in their own light. They're all good films, but the point was like it's just depressing me. It depressed me as a kid back in middle school, seeing the credits roll on Friday 13th Part 8 and knowing that it was over. And then next day I had to go back to school and deal with being beat up and tortured by all these preppy and jock assholes who treated me like shit because I was a little skinny nerd and always talking about Friday the 13th and drawing pictures of Jason in my notebook. And so that was my refuge. I'm sure it was for a lot of people. You guys listening, this was your refuge, was these films. So we looked up to Jason. We saw him as what we wanted to be, I guess. Not really killing people for real, but just the idea of being able to stand up for ourselves and defend ourselves. Because a lot of us weren't able to do that because of the limitations we had, and most people were assholes. Anyway, but that was like for me, USA Network was my escape. I mean, I watched Weird Science, Silk Stockings, and Tech War, and everything on that channel was awesome. And I loved the TV movies; they were great. And when they would do a Friday 13th marathon, I was glued because it was like a haven, and then like I was excited, and I would be in my room with my little old TV with the cable box and the VCR, recording them, and I'd be like, okay, this is where I belong, and that's where I wanted to go with this podcast. So I don't know if I want to take up too much more time with it. I know you guys are probably getting tired of my voice, getting bored with it. But if you want more, just drop me a comment or anything and let me know what's going on. I would like to do more podcasts and maybe get more popular. But the thing I would really love to do is make like a place for campers like me to go to to say, hey, I'm here. I'm different, but this is where I belong. I belong with the Friday the 13th family. I'm a happy camper. That was the whole point of this podcast, and I think it's coming across pretty well. This is only the third episode in, but I'm feeling really good about it. And hopefully, you guys listening, whoever you are, if you are listening, let me know. Uh, and like, let's see, where was I going with this? Where was I going with this? My brain's going dark. I usually have stuff written down, but my brain's all. So anyway, but if you if you were younger and like you were born after like the 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 90s and you don't know what I'm talking about, USA Network now is pale in comparison. It is hollow and boring and feels because the new gods took over in the early 2000s and wanted to class it up, as they say. So they got rid of USA's Up All Night and Duckman and Weird Science and Silk Stockings and everything that was fun, and they replaced it with reruns of like NCIS and crap. And it was just hollow. I mean, it was boring. But that's just my opinion, though. That's how I feel because I just feel like for me, after the year 1999, everything changed, and it was like not just USA Network, but also TNT and Cartoon Network and all the other channels, Sci-Fi Channel even. They just changed. They became really hollow. I guess it was because they were trying to save money, so they got rid of a lot of things that were really great about it. And then with the internet, with streaming nowadays, nobody even cares about these channels anymore because everybody's streaming now. So, but I'm getting off my soapbox now. I think it's about the time to end this one. So, if you like it, let me know. Leave a comment or whatever. I'll be back next time with another edition of Happy Campers. Love you guys. Bye.